ingobyi duhetse reka nkuririmbe nkwihoreze ndibuka uribuka turibuka twiyubaka ndibuka uribuka turibuka twiyubaka ihorere Rwanda we abawe tuguhoze wanyuze mu mwijima uhinduka urumuri rumurikira iyi si ntiruteze kuzima oya abawe twibuke Genocide yakorewe Abatutsi twibuke y'amajoro yuzuye intimba n'imiborogo uwitwa Umututsi yo ahigwa bukware ndetse ngo yicwe azira uko yaremwe tubibuke ihorere Rwanda we abawe tuguhoze wanyuze mu mwijima uhinduka urumuri rumurikira iyi si ntiruteze kuzima oya Rwanda abo wareze tuzakurwanira ishyaka tugamije kukubaka inkingi imwe ntigera inzu maze ibyabaye ntibigasubire mana y'u Rwanda oya ntibikabe bana b'u Rwanda ntibizongera ukundi ihorere Rwanda we abawe tuguhoze wanyuze mu mwijima uhinduka urumuri rumurikira iyi si ntiruteze kuzima oya oya ndibuka uribuka turibuka twiyubaka
Well, hello there. It is the 11th day of April, a day that saw the Tutsis killed at Eto, Nyanza, Kichuchiro, 26 years ago. Now, today, as part of the commemoration period, we will be talking about the role of the international community in the genocide against the Tutsis, or rather the genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsis in 1994. To discuss this, I'm joined by Honorable Minister for Justice, Honorable Johnston Busingye. I'm also joined by Rwandan Member of Parliament and Deputy Speaker, Honorable Eda Mukabagwize. And on Skype, we have Maitre Karongozi, who is a lawyer based in Belgium and who has tried many cases related to the genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsis. Thank you very much for making time to be with us. Before we start, let us take a minute of silence to honor those who passed, or rather perished, during the 1994 that was perpetrated against the Tutsis. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll start off with the Honorable Minister. During the 1994 that was perpetrated against the Tutsis, of course, we had the UNAMIR soldiers in the country, but we all know that they did not do much. In fact, those from Belgium, they reduced the numbers, and they actually retrieved the soldiers from the country where they left Tutsis at Eto, Kichuchiro, where they were killed later on in Nyanza, Kichuchiro, on this same date, the 11th of April, that is 26 years ago. Could you describe more on the international context in which the genocide against the Tutsi happened?
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The international context in which this country was on the 7th of April 1994 was probably a high tension, I might say, a high tension time. The world, the international community that was represented here knew, saw, was aware that here the stakes were so high, and it was very, very likely that a genocide would happen. There was a lot of evidence about this. So the context in which this happened, we will be probably talking about the departure, exit of the Belgian troops from Eto. But the whole situation was a situation of failure to prevent, because there was a lot of evidence that a genocide would happen. At least a massacre on a mass scale would happen, because there were caches of weapons, there was written evidence, there was a lot of testimony. Many things were being seen in preparation of the genocide. So the international community, in my view, failed to prevent, and secondly, failed to stop or repress the genocide once it happened. The essential decisions to prevent and the essential decisions to stop, did not take place. And then after this, you had this whole international situation where to decide whether it was a genocide happening in Rwanda took a long, long time, nearly a month, up to July the 4th of 1994. While right in Kigali, the weapons caches which had been identified, nobody seized them, nobody pointed a finger, nobody rounded them up. The United Nations Security Council did not change the mandate of UNAMIR.
Yet they knew.
Yes, UNAMIR needed a mandate to take more robust action and stop, prevent, fight back. That did not happen. In the midst of this, on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th, it was now very, very clear that a genocide was happening. Mass killing was going on of unarmed, innocent civilians from their homes at roadblocks, fleeing, and nothing happened. So the withdrawal of the Belgian troops from Eto until now needs to be seen as an action that led to the murder of every refugee, every person who had taken refuge at Eto. A genocide was happening, yes, but those people who were at Eto, the chances that they would be protected, the chances that a genocide against them specifically those who were in Eto, that it would be prevented, the chances were so high because that was a United Nations occupied space. Not only was the UNAMIR, or the Belgian troops, able to fight back, it would also have become a different international element if the government, the Interahamwe, and so on, decided to attack the United Nations occupied space. It wasn't going to happen. So today is the 11th. We remember those people.
Yes.
They should know, Rwandans should know, the international community should know that those people were not in a situation of helplessness. They were not in a situation of defenselessness. They were not in a situation where they should have died. They were put in a situation, they were abandoned to death. They were left to die by the exiting Belgian troops. We know very well that the commander of that contingent has never been held accountable because the argument out there is that he acted under a UN mandate, which had not been changed. But that exit and abandoning, thousands of people to their death, knowing
very well
that they would die, until now, is a blot on the conscience of the international community. General Dallaire was leading the UNAMIR contingent here, and he raised the alarm enough times for the United Nations Security Council to act. He said, Telefax says he raised the alarm in many ways. He reminded everybody that was responsible that he needed to intervene and act under Chapter 7, not under Chapter 6 but of the United Nations Convention, but he was never allowed to do that. So the inability to act of the United Nations was a major problem for the genocide of Rwanda, and also right now as we speak about 11th of April, we need to be very specific about Eto.
Eto, yes.
Eto was a small example of a very large failure of the United Nations forces which were here. In my calculation, and I think in calculations of other people, what happened was simply a decision that considered that those people could be dispensed with because they indeed died, I think, not very many hours after
yes,
they were abandoned.
Yes, sir. But besides international community, then why do you think countries like Belgium, so when they left Belgium, French soldiers left, did this send a message? Is this why many other countries felt they could also abandon the Rwandans in need at that particular time, especially because even the United Security Council was silent on this?
Well, that is a problem, I think, that we will have to live with. The international community acts in ways that become mysterious and strange. An operation called Operation Amaryllis of the French. My French is not so good. I'm sorry. It came in here just about the time the genocide started, and the stated objective was to evacuate people in danger. But Rwandans seemed not to be in those people. And then more especially, Rwandans who were being hunted seemed not to be in those people that were to be evacuated, because they were able to evacuate other families here. They evacuated Habyarimana's family, for example.
Yes, they did.
But those who are being hunted to be killed seemed not to be among the people to be evacuated. So French nationals, other international nationals were candidates for evacuation. But Rwandans, especially Rwandans who are being hunted to be killed, were not part of the people to be saved. So the Belgians left on the 11th. Amaryllis did not evacuate the people who are being hunted. Whether it sent the signal that the world can lay back and allow this genocide to roll, naturally, I really don't know. But that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
But what does it mean to take part in a genocide in the international context? I'm asking you this because I want you to set the best for us before we now move to other international countries and what they've done. But in you, what does it mean to take part in the genocide, especially in the international context and in terms of law?
I think that to take part is two ways. It is to take and to take part by omission.
Yes.
By commission, I mean taking part actively, facilitating, arming, funding, or directly getting involved in a situation of a genocide. But also by omission, by refusing to call out, by refusing to prevent, by failing to stop, by not taking all the essential steps that would lead to a pushback or a stop of a genocide, then as an international community, you have reneged on obligations set out in the 1948 Convention. Because the world, once a genocide is taking place, once a genocide is the action that is happening on ground, the international community becomes under obligation to act.
To act, yeah.
And failure to act by commission or by omission is actually to be part of that genocide, because the obligation makes you make a choice. You will take action, or you will fail to take action. Both of those decisions make you, party or not party to the genocide.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I now come to you. Of course, I wanted us to get the buzz of what it means in terms of the international community. But as your diplomatic experience, you were once an ambassador, of course, in Canada. While in Canada, it was very fresh. How did they view Rwanda then?
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that very good introduction that really helped me to go on. I should maybe say that, start by saying that Canada is also part of international community.
Yes.
As Canada is also a member state of UN, which means the time I got there, it was in 2007. Things had started already moving on.
Moving on, yes.
Which means for me, maybe it was not so good timing, but at least it was somehow good because in 1994, 95, 96, I can imagine how things could be. But Canada, as you know, was as I was saying, is a member state of international community. But before genocide against Tutsi, also Canada was a good partner to Rwanda. Mostly the part of Quebec, the Quebec province. So that Quebec was too close to the government, which means that when that government was withdrawn, it means that it was not very easy to Canada really to understand things very well. Right, yeah, you could see. And because Quebec is one of 10 provinces, 12 and 2 territories, but Quebec at that time was very influential to the the federal government. Actually, Quebec is very key and very strong in foreign affairs, which means it could very easily influence. And for sure, because of that, that partnership that Quebec and Canada in general had with the former government before genocide, you could see many former officials, Rwandan officials, very close to some citizens, Canadian citizens, Canadian officials. They could very easily influence the decision from there. And some of them, they were already studying or even teaching. They had already they had a place in different institutions like universities. You know how much universities are very influential.
Influential, yes. And
at that time it was not very easy. But slowly you could see Canada coming back around 1997. They even brought back the Bureau of Cooperation and Development that they had here before. And that time, I don't remember exactly the year, but I think in 1996, something like that, Canada was a principal, a main player in the conference that happened in New York when countries had started deliberating or analyzing the situation in Rwanda, and also mostly studying about the massive repatriation. And from that time, we could see Canada coming back slowly, but came back. And I could say that I think Canada was actually among the first embassies to come back to start operating in Rwanda. The time I got there in 2007, for sure, like I said, things had started moving on. You could see, you could meet different officials, and they could, you could hear them feeling sorry about what happened in Rwanda. And you could feel them engaged to help and to get more in development. But you can even look into different projects that we had from Canada at that time. You can see that they had decreased. They had decreased. They were much involved in education, for example, but they were no longer really much involved like they used to be before. That's the reason why I can say that my experience there was not very easy. I had really to try to bring them understand what we were doing and how Rwanda is moving forward. They could see, they know it, they could even follow the programs and the policies that we had. They were very positive to the program of unity and reconciliation. And yeah, it really asked to do much diplomacy and meet different friends of Rwanda to see if they can help to add some voices to what we were doing. But I think Canada now have moved on, and they are good partners, and they are, even that time when I was there, maybe I'll come back to that, but they were much involved in pursuing some fugitives. When I reached there, there was a trial on genocide, a trial of Desiree Munyaneza. Yes. And that trial was closed, and also there was some other files going on, like the one of Mongwarebe, who also was deported here, and there is a case of Mugesera Leo that also was very hard and complex somehow, because whatever was tried, and he could also have another step with different lawyers, for sure. He was helped by different lawyers. But by the end, Canada could make it a very, very good decision that we appreciate in 2012 or 11. And then Mugesera was deported to Rwanda.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was the most highlighted case from Canada.
Yes.
We go to Skype now. We have Maitre Andre Martin, of course, Karongozi. He's a lawyer based in Belgium. Hope you're doing well, Maitre Karongozi.
Thank you very much.
As a lawyer based in Belgium, and of course, having tried all cases related to genocide in Belgium, in your opinion, what do you think are some of the lessons that have been learned over the years concerning the cases that, of course, you've been following up back in Belgium?
I think the first thing to say, it's genocide is a crime against the whole humanity. And since the 1948 Convention on Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide, countries decide to take into account the gravity of the situation after genocide committed against Jews. So it's that way Belgium adopted a law in 1993 in order to punish people accused of genocide, crime of against humanity, and war crimes. So it's under this law, Belgian law in 1993, that people have been put in on trial Belgium since 2005. And we have already got 5 trials. In 2005, 2007, 2009, 90. So I think a good example of what's called universal. The law to provide trials against people use of genocide, crime against humanity, or crimes.
Yeah, but Maitre Karunguzi, or rather lawyer, the latest case that, of course, was tried was that of Fabien Neretse. What was special about this case in particular?
This case happened last year during November month and December 2019, and it was really special because it was organized 10 years after the last one. I mean the trial against Kezabera Ephraim, which happened in 2009. So it happened 10 years later, and it was especially very, very hard in terms of negationism, because the defense of Neretse had chosen to reject everything and to try to put all crimes on RPF. So it was really very hard, even for lawyers, to follow and to try to keep quiet in front of defense, which was really insulting for the memory of victims. This was the thing which was really very, very special. But fortunately, the jury members decided not to follow this kind of defense, and which gave a good, lesson for even all deniers of genocide, 1994 genocide, as he really he got a very strong lessons sentenced for 2 years for prison.
Absolutely. Please stay online as we continue our discussion, because now we've gone, we're now talking about fugitives and the long arm of the law, like we like to say. We talk about ICTR now, Honorable Minister. Of course, over 90 cases were pursued, but at the end of 10 years in its existence, at least 60 only prosecuted, if I'm not wrong. How, first, before we go to other details, how do you rate the tribunal oversight? In 1 to 10, what score would you give ICTR?
Well, I want to believe that the 1 to 10 rating would be complicated. But let me say this. For many years, we've talked about what the ICTR was able to accomplish. And we usually compare it with what we domestically were able to accomplish, but also what realistically we expect they would have been able to accomplish with the resources that they had. They did a number of cases, probably upwards of 90, but they did 62 cases that were prosecuted successfully with convictions. 14 were acquitted. 10 were referred to other countries. Out of those 10, 8 are referred to Rwanda. And out of those 8, it's only 2 which were physical individuals who came here. The 5 are still at large. The world is still looking out for them. I think there's about 2 who died during the process.
Yes.
The ICTR was mixed. First of all, it was the first tribunal to try a genocide since 1948. Since this is the Convention for the Prevention and Suppression of Genocide. It was the first to do that. And probably it was learning. It was an institution that was not learning from a previous institution like itself. And as we saw, it built from scratch. It built itself from zero in building the institution itself, building its own resources, at the same time handling cases that it was handling. So to rate it on a 1 to 10, it's not as straight as one would a very straight mathematical situation. However, there's some things that we, as a legacy, take from the ICTR, which I think are beneficial, which I think are positive, from the existence of the ICTR. And if you'll permit me, I'll go through a few of them. First of all, it is that particular aspect that it was the first since 1948 to try genocide, a genocide, from a genocide situation to a court of law, a tribunal established by the UN. Then, very specific about the genocide against the Tutsi, this case, this court established in 2 cases that there was, because you remember there was a lot of debate whether there was a genocide here, whether there was no genocide here. It never ceased. Although the Security Council had made a resolution, had adopted a resolution to that effect, out of which this court was established. That was about August 1994. Still, there was a lot of debate, and inside the courtroom, defense counsel were really challenging whether what they were involved in that court were genocide suspects or suspects of other crimes. So in the Akayesu case, which was the first case that this court decided, the court decided that there was a genocide in Rwanda, which was so important for jurisprudence of that court, and also it was also important for defense lawyers, other members of the international community, genocide deniers, everybody who was going towards the direction of this was civil war, this was inter-ethnic war, this was, it was given so many other names, just because people wanted to run away from responsibility for a genocide. And in this case, the court was able to say, yes, there was a war between the RPA, the armed wing of the RPF, and the government, forces of the government of Rwanda, FAR, but those two, that was a separate thing. A genocide also happened against the Tutsi population of Rwanda. So this was a major blow to genocide deniers, to those who would want the world to believe that this was civil war and inter-ethnic conflict. The second thing that this court did was to acknowledge rape. Rape as a weapon that was used in the genocide. There will be, I think, time to discuss rape. The the impact and the extent of rape during the genocide the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. But from this case, and from what we know now, the genocide was a weapon just like the machete, just like the gun, just like the spear, just like all other tools that were used. Rape was used as a weapon, very specifically against Tutsi women. And in this case of again Akayesu, for the first time, because the previous, even the convention didn't even allude to rape as a weapon of war, as a weapon of genocide. But this case again decided that rape was a weapon of the genocide, and it added on the list of weapons that can actually be used were used in the genocide. So that was very important, and a very important lesson, not just for Rwanda, but for the world, that this is an evolving area, and you can, depending on the facts on the ground, a court of law had power as systematic, as egregious as the other forms and the other tools that were being used in the genocide. Number three, in this court, we had a prime minister,
Yes.
Kambanda Jean.
Yeah.
Kambanda Jean pleaded guilty. Even before he was put to his trial, pleaded guilty. And he pleaded guilty to every charge, I think it was 8 of them, to every charge that was against him. And it was Kambanda, in his own statement, who said, look, I managed a government, I headed a government. And this government made a conscious choice, decided consciously to kill the Tutsi population. And if you remember Kambanda going to the southern province, the current southern province, and to speak to citizens that are around different areas and telling them, look here, you guys, you don't need to keep being scared of anything. I have my own gun, and he pulls it out and he shows it up. That was part of the evidence, but there was a lot of evidence. And this, even from an ordinary observer of Kambanda's government, I don't know anything else that Kambanda's government did apart from killing people. I have no information about something else that Kambanda's government did. So this case of Kambanda put to rest many things, including that the government, the interim government after Habyarimana's death, as a government, not as specific individuals, but as a government, to commit genocide, and Kambanda pleaded guilty. The other thing that happened was that the lesson that it gave to the world was that if you prepare a genocide and you run away, you prepare, you commit, and you run away, the world has an obligation to look for you. The long arm of the law will look for you. If you know that the number of people who are tried in this court, all of them were found in different parts of this world in hiding. All of them, having changed their names, having changed their, all sorts of nationalities and so on, acquired different things altogether, but the long arm of the law followed them up. So this was also something very important. And what is important inside it is this, that if you look at the range of people who are tried in this court, apart from members of government, there were, yes, members of government, there were ordinary politicians, there were business people, there were clergy, people of faith, people of the church, there were journalists, there were you know, young activists, militias. So this court told another story, that the genocide against the Tutsi, you know, the perpetrators comprised everybody. It comprised all sections of Rwandan society. All sections of Rwanda, meaning everybody in business, in faith, religion, in politics, in private sector. Everybody was part of this thing, was part of it. So all sections of Rwandan society got involved in the genocide, meaning either it talked about the scale of mobilization, it speaks also to the volume of involvement, and it also puts to rest arguments that the genocide wasn't planned and so on and so forth. Again, one thing that I keep observing is that if all these people, the politicians, the clergy, the journalists, everybody, if these people were by luck found in Rwanda, and we tried them here in our courts or in Gacaca or somewhere else, do you imagine the amount of pushback the world would put against Rwanda? People would say, look, you're simply persecuting clergy people, you are simply muzzling freedom of press, you are busy muzzling politicians, because you don't speak the same language. So there was a lot of benefit that these people were tried in that court, because that was an independent international court that was not directed, not on the payroll, not a Rwandan institution of justice. It was an international court established by the UN. So the fact that all these people were tried there has given a lot of legal authority for those who were tried here, for those who have been tried elsewhere in other countries, those who have been tried in France, in Belgium, in Germany and elsewhere, Netherlands, Sweden, because it created the legitimacy that was very necessary at the time for the rest of the trials and so on. So the ICTR, after giving you those few points, if you want to rate it from 1 to 10, it will not be very easy. There are some very good things we will have to live with as a legacy of the ICTR. Then there are other things we continue to say, well, look, you guys, you had all the resources at your disposal to do much more work than you did. But we don't run that institution. We don't run the UN. Probably that's not a debate that we should, that I would carry on forever. I would look at the obligation, look at what they were supposed to do, look at all these benefits that we have from doing it, and look at what they are doing going forward. Because there is still about 9 fugitives that we still look for, including Kabuga, Mhiranyi, and so on. The successor to the ICTR, the mechanism, International Criminal Tribunals, is still running some of these residual activities. So there is a lot of work that they did. And obviously, scholars, researchers, and other observers say you could have done better than you did.
Absolutely. But Honorable Minister, of course, you've mentioned the prisoners that, we've had across. And of course, you mentioned the importance as to why probably they were not brought into the country back then. But look at it this way. Today we have at least 8, war crimes convicts of the United Nations Special Court for Sierra Leone, being brought to Rwanda to continue their time here. Yet we still have people out there who believe that they cannot bring the Rwandan prisoners who were actually charged in court to continue their time in Rwanda. Yet to many genocide survivors, they will tell you, this comforts me if I know they're in prison in my own country. How do we ensure that we bring them home to face justice in the very same land they committed the atrocities in?
It doesn't only comfort a genocide survivor, it comforts all of us, Rwandans. It should comfort all of us that these people who were convicted and are out there serving their sentences should be serving their sentences in Rwanda. We have been pushing for this to happen, and it doesn't happen, but we will not relent on wanting this to happen. But those who say that if these people came here, they would be subjected to conditions that are not appropriate, not on international standards, that would be subjected to torture. All that is politics. There's nothing true in that. There's nothing true in that. And I want to believe that even our partners at the UN really understand that that is politics. If it was not, Canada would not have sent Mugesera here.
Absolutely.
The ICTR itself would not have sent Uwinyindi here. He's here. Bandora would not have come here from Norway. Many people, Netherlands has sent people here. There are many people who have been sent here. And specifically, the ICTR has sent people, physical people, and also sent files of 5 more people. If we find them, they will be tried here. One of them has already been found in DRC and is being tried here in Rwanda. So, if that was the argument, and it was a true argument, that people who are sent to Rwanda would be subjected to conditions of torture or of degrading or bad treatment, certainly that would nobody would be sending people here, including the ICTR themselves. So the fact that they are here, in my view, should remove any doubt that we, as a country, are part of the international system. We oblige with our international obligations. We do what we are expected to do, and if there are standards, we comply with those standards. The international prisoners here from Sierra Leone are subjected to a review and monitoring and follow-up and supervision by the same mechanism that is following up on the residual issues after the International Court for Sierra Leone wound up. But they come here all the time. They visit these people. Absolutely. They supervise. They follow up. And to date, I want to believe that they are satisfied that what we do tallies with international practice for the kind of prisoners that are here. I think we have already sent back one of the prisoners back home for their conditional release. And I didn't hear that one of his complaints was that he was subjected to anything bad in Rwanda. In fact, I want to believe that the legacy is good. So people should come and serve their sentence here. The international community should hear this. The United Nations Security Council should hear this. The MICT, the mechanism which succeeded the ICTR, should hear this. And not only those, we also have people who were acquitted by the court, long time ago. They still sit in Arusha. And they continue telling us that they are looking for places where countries which will accept to take them on. And what we keep telling them is, look, these people are Rwandans.
Absolutely.
They should come to Rwanda. That is the first place they should come, rather than be looking around, because right now that has turned them into, we normally tell them that they have become UN citizens. They belong to a country called UN because they are in some UN facility, and I don't know whether that will be forever, but the easiest, most logical solution should be send them to Rwanda, or let them voluntarily come to Rwanda and be part of the journey that we are on, because we are on a journey. From 1994 to now, going forward, we are on a journey. Why wouldn't they come and become part of the journey? So the reason they won't, one might be personal, but by not doing so, they start to become pockets of genocide denial. They start to become pockets not on a good faith mission. I suspect it wasn't a good faith mission, but he was returned back to Tanzania. So these people start to become pockets of genocide denial and the genocide ideology, and they propagate it.
Yes.
So if you are doing this justice that has these elements of unity and reconciliation and this whole journey that involves every Rwandan, then these people should not be simply isolated and kept like you know, and see some of these things and see part of this history.
Before we take a short break, maybe we do lawyer Karongozi. Of course, he has heard what the Honorable Minister has said, and of course, he is part of the people who has been trying most of the cases, especially in Belgium. What would you say to this? How more collaborative or how loud can we get to ensure that this message is sent home, especially in the international scene that you are already there representing some of these cases?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think Honorable Mr. Businge is really correct. Rwanda have get some steps in terms of getting international human rights standard. And I am happy because one of the persons who have been convicted here, Major Ntuyahaga, had been sent in Rwanda, so he's living in Rwanda. What shows us, even Belgian authorities who haven't already accepted to extradite suspect living in Belgium have accepted to send Ntuyahaga in his future. Even extradition will be allowed from Belgium to Rwanda. But what we get with this decision, the fifth condemnation of people who have been involved in the genocide, it shows us, even for Belgian citizens, that they are secure. We've got security when we've got some people who are being convicted, because if you let me say this, genocide is the biggest crime in the world. We were talking about September 11th, with the threat of terrorism. Genocide is really the veritable terrorism in terms of, crimes against humanity. So Belgium convicted all suspect persons who are living in Belgium. But when we have a trial like the trial against Nerete, we are international law is for universal jurisdiction. And the other thing here, it's the first time with the trial against
We are facing a bit of technical hitch, but of course, once we get him back, we will be talking to him shortly.
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So it's the first time in Belgium we've got a decision on genocide crime itself, because all that trial before was about the Belgian Kurdasis sentenced for 25 years on genocide crime. So that is a good example, and a failure against deniers, because we still, even if it's well known that in Rwanda in 1994 genocide happened, we still have people who are, denying what happened. So this is a really a good lessons for everybody and for deniers as well.
Thank you very much. We take a short break. Discussions.
ntibazakubeshye dore aho ndi ndabibabwira nayo ibintu niboneye jenoside barayipanze bari barabipanze bari babizi bariya barwanashyaka bakomeye bari babizi yenda umuturage uhinga hariya bamushoyemo ariko bariya bantu bari babizi bari bazi icyo bateguye.
Jenoside yabaye mu Rwanda kuva kera nuko yari itaratangazwa, yari itaragera kuri ruriya rwego abantu bajya hariya bakavuza induru bagatemagurana Loni kabibona n'ibihugu bikabibona.
Ubwo se abagogwe babishe bose twayisiza hose mwarayibonaga.
1964 niho bakoze ibikorwa bya jenoside rwose hariya mu gice cya Bufunju no Nyambiri, bishe abantu ku murongo bararimbuye ku mugaragaro.
Wabonaga ukuntu bamubiriza abantu ibyo ari byizaba kuko yari yaratangiye kugenda iba.
Nkeka ko n'abatutsi batize bagize ibyago bikomeye nabe n'abari barize babyumuga mu mashuri, ukumva ko wowe ngo umunyamahanga, wowe ngo mwavuye hanaha, wowe ngo mwagize mute.
Kubana n'abari ukubana n'inzoka ari ukubana n'abura.
Hari FPR, hari abacu batahuka bari mu biganiro, abantu bari mu biganiro. Ese ibi bintu igihe twari tukibaza rero ibyo bintu nibwo jenoside yaje.
Welcome back, and of course, thank you for keeping with us as we continue to commemorate for the 26th time the lives of those who lost their lives rather during the 1994 genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsi. We are still talking about the role of the international community in all this. Honorable Deputy Speaker, of course, then you were an ambassador, in Canada, and that time again, General Dallaire was already in Canada. What was the relationship like between General Dallaire and the Rwandan embassy at the time?
Yeah, thank you very much. There was different conferences, 2 different talks that the embassy could organize or the Rwandan community could organize. And I could very often meet him and sometimes ask him some advice. That was also possible to see how to deal with Canadian officials, and or to help me or to help the embassy reach to some MPs, because as you know, in that kind of politics, like in Canada, the members of parliament has really a very big role, and they can help to defend different things, different items that you can discuss with them. Then that time, Romeo Dallaire was among the people we could even call friends of Rwanda. The time you meet him, he was all the time back to what happened here, what happened when he was here during the pre-genocide against Tutsi. The time he left unwillingly, you could feel it, and he could even express it. He was somebody that you, as embassy, we could rely on, because he could even sometimes give us or connect us to some people, not only officials, but also to different people in universities. And what was good also from him was that during different conferences, because he was participating in different conferences, not only those organized by embassy or by the Rwandan community, but other people also, about genocide, genocide against Tutsi or other kinds of war crimes. That because now he's now very key in the international community to talk about that kind of things. What I was going to say is that he could connect us to different people. You could see sometimes giving some talks about fugitives, the people who were in Canada. He was very, sometimes very aggressive to the community, to Canadian community, to see how they should really react against the people who are all fugitives in Canada. He played a very big role with other friends like Honorable Irwin Cotrer, a former Minister of Justice, who was also, he helped very much in Desiree Munyaneza case. Because that time when the Desiree Munyaneza case started, Honorable Irwin Cotrer was the Minister of Justice, and he could make things easy. What else I can say maybe about Romeo Dallaire is that at a certain time we have also to remind that when he was here in Rwanda, he was not working on behalf of the government of Canada. He was working as an international. He was in UNAMIR, as we said. Then he was reporting to the international community, I mean UN, which means that time he was taken as a UN worker, or I don't remember how they call them. But what he lived here has much impact on him, so that I think also Canada could appreciate what he tried to do, and that's the reason why he was also given a place, a role in the politics of Canada, so that he can also have that opportunity to talk about some of those things.
But do you think the lessons he learned, particularly from Rwanda during the 1994 genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsis, these particular lessons that, of course, the former commander of UNAMIR, did he talk about them? Do you think there are lessons he learned that he shares with the world, that since he has a voice, like you just put it?
Yeah, I think there are some lessons that he's already sharing with the international community. And I even think that it's the reason why he founded that organization of his much working for the child soldiers association that he founded himself. And wherever he is in such kind of conferences, he's talking about what happened. He feels very sorry about what happened. And for him, the international community didn't, like Honorable Minister Businge said, the international community failed to intervene and to prevent, even to intervene, and to react during even the genocide when it was happening. For him, he's really speaking out about that. And he's actually advising many countries to have a law against genocide. There are many countries that we have without such kind of law. And for him, nowadays, I heard him saying that Canada should also have a law against denial, a law on that punishing denial of genocide against Tutsi.
Yeah.
I think as somebody who is influential and who is very well connected internationally and nationally, I mean in Canada, he can very much influence to have such kind of law. But which is good also is that Canada is already engaged. Like, Canada is supportive to the UN resolution, which asks countries to have a day of reflection on April 7. They had already started implementing. I think Canada can easily have such kind of law if really people talk to them and try to, for sure we have a role also to play as MPs, our counterparts. We can also talk to them, and in parliamentary diplomacy, it's something which is very possible. We had a group of Canadian MPs who visited Rwanda recently. They were very touched, and you could feel that they are supportive and cooperative in such kind of things.
I'll bring you in, Honorable Minister. We talk about UN, of course, and you mentioned that they have now recognized the genocide against the Tutsis. But what are the international actions and processes that led to this? And why do you think it took so long? And, despite the very many, articles, the very many push that people had put out there for them to recognize this particular day?
If you'll allow me, I would probably chip in
Sure.
the Deputy Speaker's comments on General Dallaire. General Dallaire, in my view, is a legacy himself. Is a legacy on many fronts. One, General Dallaire was here as the build-up to the genocide was taking place. He saw the evidence, he saw the caches of arms, he sent the message, he did the alerts, he raised the alarm. Number two, General Dallaire dealt with the Security Council, the peacekeeping department in New York. It was headed that time by Kofi Annan. He dealt with that. looking for at least a change of mandate to enable him to act under Chapter 7 and become more obligated to act in a more robust way to prevent or to stop the genocide. That did not happen. So he saw the evidence, the build-up. He tried to seek a mandate to do the work, to prevent or to stop. It did not happen. Then he saw the genocide expand and unfold and people die in his very eyes. And today he is a legacy, he is a story of what can happen when the right decisions are taken. And what can not happen when the right decisions are not taken. So as a person, he looks at himself as having, dealt with so many things, including Rwandans dying on his hands. He was watching, including the book he wrote about shaking hands with the devil, including, shaking hands, coming face to face with the people who were planning and who actually implemented. So Dallaire is a global lesson. He himself. Much as he's a global teacher, he teaches and he gives these lessons, but he himself is a lesson. First of all, he disagreed. He said, you must give me the mandate to act because I'm here to protect people. I'm not here simply to raise a flag of the UN in Kigali. I'm here to protect these people. Yes, my life will be in danger, but these people are dying. That's why we are here, to put ourselves in harm's way in order to, prevent death on these people. That did not happen, and death happened. A few people within his forces who tried to intervene and save people, which they did. I think one of them that we know very well, the Senegalese Mbaye Diagne, lost his life saving people here. But the whole story of how UNAMIR was, the numbers were reduced instead of expanded. Mandate was not changed instead of being changed in the time when it should have. How we remained here with a number that couldn't do anything, so makes Dallaire, in my view, a story himself. Much as he is, someone who tells a story, he himself is a story of how the international community should do, what the international community should do and what it should not do. The responsibility to protect, I have a feeling, draws very much from the failures in Rwanda and failures in other places in the world, and then you now have a responsibility to protect as a principle, a major principle on the international space. You asked me about the journey of recognition.
Yes.
First of all, let's understand this. A genocide, once you recognize it, then questions come up. When did you recognize it? What you should have done when you recognize it? Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you prevent it? And so on and so forth. So I think the international community would want to spend time around that debate. If you saw the debate that happened before before even the establishment of the ICTR, because that was sort of the beginning of recognition, when the UN adopted a resolution establishing the court, you would see that it was not because there was no evidence that a genocide was being committed. Instead, it was what will happen once we recognize that it is happening or it has happened. So, but there were various international reports that paved the way for this. In 1994, in August, there was the first report, the Degni Segui report, that who was the rapporteur? It was of the Human Rights Commission, which established that a genocide was committed in Rwanda. That was the Human Rights Commission report to which Mr. Degni Segui was a rapporteur. Then it was on the basis of this, if you remember, that the Security Council established the ICTR, and it started. Then there were many other things. There was Carson. There was that was I think 2000 when he published 15th December 1999, not 2000, who also indicated many things, including failure to prevent, also to stop, and that this failure left deep wounds on Rwandan society and still weighs on the darkened relations between Rwanda and the international community, in particular the United Nations. And that the open wounds, if I might quote, the open wounds must be addressed for the good of the Rwandan people and for that of the United Nations. So it is important for Rwanda, for the United Nations, and for all those, wherever they may be, who may be at risk of genocide in the future, that it is important to establish the truth. So this report did 19 findings, a number of recommendations, but all of them were about this genocide has happened. We did not stop it. We did not prevent it. We did not stop it. It has created a wound. It has created a problem between us and the UN, and the rest of the world now needs to act to make sure the Rwanda stands on its feet again and recovers the relationships that are lost, and so on and so forth. And then later on, there was the Ketumire Masiri report that was at the level of the Organization of African Unity, May 2000. Even that one, it stated a number of things, but I want to quote one that we can clearly state our position that this group has no doubt that the tragic events of April to July 1994 in Rwanda constitute genocide. It also arrived at a number of other findings. However, you will know that a number of countries did not use the term genocide in their vocabulary. Yes. It took long because, in my view, as I said a moment ago, under the 1948 Convention, if they recognized, then there would be obligations. First, in the beginning, to prevent or to stop. Even later, there would be questions. So, in my view, that's really the reason it would take long, not because the evidence was not very clear, but because the consequences of recognition would be, soul-searching. Yeah.
And that's true. Let's talk about genocide ideology and genocide denial. This has been, or negation rather. This has been something that has disturbed so many people for a very long time, because we have some countries that do not have laws already in place to punish those, who do this. How is Rwanda tackling this issue, and what more needs to be done to ensure that the fight against genocide ideology is strong enough so that whoever, negates this is actually punished?
Well, the genocide against the Tutsi was committed, it was planned, and it was executed. It was executed in broad daylight by, Rwandans. That's one. And the government of the day, the army of the day, the other security apparatus of the day, and many other actors in the private sector, in the church, and every other place, in media and so on, became actors. That's on the Rwandan space. On the international space, there were countries which were involved in Rwanda's life, which could have done, which could have acted to prevent or to stop. And also, after 1994, after the genocide, some of these countries continued to take action, do actions that facilitated the escape, the running away, the refugee status of many of these people, especially the people in high places who committed the genocide. Why am I giving you this background? I'm trying to show you that this genocide involved the who is who in Rwanda and the who is who in the countries, very few countries that had very close cooperation with Rwanda. So genocide denial, apart from it being a natural follow-up, it naturally follows a genocide, in Rwanda, it really had to. It really had to. Because the way it happened, the evidence that there was, it would be very surprising if denial did not follow the genocide. Because the amount of guilt on all those sections of people that I mentioned, on all those individuals in government, in politics, in all those sections, the amount of guilt on them as individuals and as entities as they served at the time, the amount of guilt is simply too much. So, much as researchers have researched and recorded that denial will always follow genocide, here it had to. So we fight denial. We continue to push back at denial. We do it all the time. We find resources. We find partners. We expand the fight against denial. We will do that, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to have more resources and more expansion. And that is really I'm saying this for the benefit of those who might be denying the genocide, that we will come after them. We are not going to relent. No, we will come after them, and we will make sure that what happened, and I think that is what General Romeo Dallaire has been talking about in Canada. He says, denying the genocide against the Tutsi is to pervert history.
Absolutely.
Is a perversion of history, and I think that's why he's pushing seriously that his country legislates against genocide denial. So, if we do not have countries, deliberately many countries, progressively more countries, deliberately legislating against genocide denial, you are going to be seeing denial in different forms. It will become political, then it will go under the cover of freedom of this, association, freedom of this, forming a political party, freedom of this, opposition, freedom of, there will be all sorts of freedoms, but they will be basically, some of them will be covers for genocide denial and the genocide ideology. So in my view, countries like Belgium, which passed a law on against genocide denial, and also France also adopted a law recently punishing denial of all genocides recognized by the 1948 by the international community. And also designating a day in their national life. They have also designated April 7th each year as a day to commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi. If we continue to have these gestures of
Goodwill?
These political will gestures to stand up to denial, then we'll continue to see denial. However, deniers' space will continue shrinking. It might be social media, it might be other forms of expression. Their space will continue receding, will continue narrowing, because the space for the evidence, for the facts, what happened in Rwanda, that the genocide against the Tutsi happened, that space will continue expanding because it's factual, it's evidential, and nothing will take it away. For them, they will be talking about double genocide, they'll be talking about no genocide, they'll be talking about civil war, they'll be talking about, all sorts of lies, but they will not, just for the sake of being many lies, they will not become truth. No. Their space will continue dwindling, will continue narrowing, and the space of those who assert the truth and the facts will continue expanding.
Minister Businge, out here there's a perception that says African countries are not coming up as much as, European countries, if I should put it that way, or the international community, to either let go of the fugitives hiding there, to either come up with laws, against genocide ideologies or the negation. What are we doing then as an African nation or African body to ensure that we're singing the same voice? Because we can't be having people abroad, supporting us, yet our own brothers and sisters in the continent are doing nothing.
Well, let me start from what we will do. We will engage them.
Okay.
We will continue engaging them. Right now, we are engaging on a number of fronts with very many countries. On the platform of bilateral cooperation, we are engaging. On the platform of justice to justice cooperation, we have sent so many indictments, and you are right, many of the indictments we have sent out for genocide fugitives are on the African continent. Probably more than 70% are on the African continent. And the response that we have, I think 70% is not on the African continent, 70% is from the other side. That is a fact that we have now. However, I don't want to believe that it is a fact that will continue that way. I want to believe that it is a fact that will be capable of changing as we engage. And as those countries probably engage with us sufficiently to understand exactly what we went through, exactly the facts on the ground, and make their own decisions on the basis of the political will inside those countries. Right now, I don't think I'm in position to pass judgment, but I can only state the facts. The response we get is you know, largely outside of Africa, the positive responses we get. I want to believe that we'll get good response from our African brothers and sisters, as you said, and you know, there is engagement at the level of prosecutors, at the level of justice institutions, at the level of our bilateral relations, foreign affairs to foreign affairs. There is increasing clarity on what happened. So I want to believe that you know, some things will change. A couple of years ago, maybe two, we got a genocide fugitive from Malawi.
Yes.
And he was brought here, and he's now serving his Gatrata sentence. Some time ago, we got a genocide fugitive from DRC. And actually, during this recent operations against members of armed groups in DRC, who ended up being brought to Rwanda. You know, a number of people who had been, who are genocide fugitives and nobody had known where they are, were found to be part of the groups which were brought back to Rwanda, and they are now serving their sentences. We have ever got a genocide fugitive. The genocide fugitives, all of whom went to the ICTR, came from some of these African countries, from especially the West African countries.
Yes.
So, in my view, there is light at the end of this tunnel, and I don't want to believe that there is a single African country which wants to be a safe haven for genocide fugitives, and wants that to be part of its flag, as part of its record of honor, as part of its report on bilateral relations with Rwanda. I don't think there is one country which wants that. So from that point, I want to believe that as we engage, as there is more clarity, as there is better and more informed you know, relations around that question of genocide fugitives, I want to imagine that more countries will come forth and work with us on tracking them and having them arrested. There is this other little point about Africa. Many of these people are, they are, you know, as black as we come. You know, look at me. If you find me in Senegal and I have a Senegalese name, and I have a Senegalese wife, and I have all this, you will not believe that I come from Kachir. You will probably not believe it. So there is also this problem where our investigators sometimes tell us that there is a real problem. You might think this man is in this country, but in this country they probably don't even know who he is, where he is, because any of these things has happened. Change of name, change of nationality, change of appearance, change of identity. So there is also this other problem. That said, what we need first and foremost is the political will to work together. Once we start working together, then we will be able to find that this man used to be from Kachiru, but when he ended up in Senegal, he started becoming a Senegalese and dressed up like a Senegalese and so on and so forth. Then people will find out, because we know that even now the people who are brought to the ICTR, those who are returned here, some of them had completely changed nationality, identity, color. You know, people had tried to change things around themselves. But with better investigation, with more cooperation, with political will, then, you know, it is easy to get someone and retrace their steps. Even in the United States, people who are brought back here from the United States had changed things, had changed names, had changed nationalities, some of them. But it was easy, it was possible with political will between Rwanda and the United States government, Rwanda and these other countries on the European subcontinent to do proper investigations and actually, find out that this person is actually not Congolese, not Burundian, not Cameroonian, not Senegalese, not Ugandan, but a Rwandan from this part of the country and is suspected to have committed genocide. So it would not be the first time for these people who change identity or other things around themselves. All we need is proper, relations and political will. The rest, we should see how far it goes.
Absolutely. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the importance of writing, the importance of telling our stories in relation to General Delaire, just like Honorable Minister Singye put it, he wrote a book. The importance of writing, how does it reflect to us when we tell, or rather when we talk about our history, even if we're not Rwandans? Why is it important that we write the stories of Rwanda? Why is it important that we encourage even those in the international community to actually write and tell the stories?
It's a very, thank you very much for the question. It's very important to write as we keep encouraging people to do so. It's important because writings help people who were not on the place, at the place, and it helps also people to understand better. But also, writing keeps memory.
It does.
Keeps memory, and for sure, for those who can write, the survivors who can write, it's also a sort of a healing. It's also at the same time healing, but also, as I was saying, it's a memory. It means things are not just forgotten and left back or behind, but you have already facts, if I may even use that term, that word, because writings also sometimes for lawyers can help, because they can also be used as facts, and as for sure they are sometimes challenged or discussed, but they are at least part of the facts that lawyers can use. It leaves also a history for the country, history for what happened. That's very, very, very useful. Maybe I don't have much to talk about unless what we already know and what we share. But writings are very important.
Absolutely, writing is very important. I say this because, on social media we've been having a hashtag says, Dear Survivors, and among the issues that we are encouraging the survivors to do is writing, so that, many people can read their stories. Many people, years to come, the generation will know what happened in our country.
And for sure, if I may add also, writings can help also to defeat the fake news sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because for sure there are some also writers who are just using the what the Honorable Minister was saying, like double genocide, and this they can, those deniers can even use writings really to spread the ideas, the opinions. But when you have also other writings, at least they can confront those kind of negative writings.
We cross over to Skype now, where Maitre Andre, if you're still with us, following what we are talking about, what do you think are some of the lessons we can learn from all the trials, that have been happening, as Rwandans, especially for the fugitives who are still at large, who probably are listening or watching us somehow? What are some of the lessons, and what would be your call to them?
Thank you so much. I would like to tell you what I said last year in a prayer in one of my interventions. I asked the jury members, please don't let Neretse falsify the history, because as I told you, the whole trial for 6 months will let the defense of Neretse saying what happened in Rwanda didn't happen like it is told. So with these trials happening abroad, the first thing which is discussed on it's about the history. The indictment last year in the Eritrea trial counts about 50 pages. Out of 50 pages, 10 pages were about Rwandan history from the monarchy genocide happened. So I was a little bit disturbed as something would be corrected by well-known historians, and I think we should focus on the history of Rwanda as it will come in whatever trial happened about genocide. That is really very important. The other thing, it's to collect as far as we can information, evidences, and testimonies in front of witness. Suspect can't do nothing. It's what we've got during the last trial happened in Belgium of the case. I was really very lucky as both. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, he does. Yes.
Both the Tutsi among witnesses have really managed to tell what they think. They were free to say what they think. Even this is for a favor of Neretse. But what happened that the jury, which was composed by people which origin is Africa, Arab countries, European countries, it's because they happen to distinguish what was wrong, what was not wrong. So testimonies are really, I mean, the big arm to fight deniers. Other thing that is about history, it's our generation, the generation who use genocide, and after genocide, we have to tell for the future generation. And the truth, even we are not able to track everybody who was involved in genocide, we need to get truth in order to have a strong society, in order to give, I mean, message to the whole world. That's the second thing, and we would like to tell the international community that failed to prevent genocide or to, I mean, to stop genocide. The international community, all countries have the aim to help Rwanda to track and prosecute remaining fugitives. As I told some suspects are still quiet in Belgium because they know that whenever it happened, they could be put in front of jurisdictions. And that gives really peace, but we have to put in our mind that they are really trained. They have, most of them are still been regretting what they failed, and they should, if begin again, they had opportunities. So that is for the stability of our country, Rwanda, but also stability of the world, as fugitives are still running everywhere in the world.
Maitre Andre, before maybe we let you go because we're running short of time, maybe your last words, to the genocide survivors today, especially the Eto, genocide survivors. What would be your word to the survivors in the country in general, to all Rwandans, as we sum up our discussion today?
I didn't understand where. What?
What would be your word of encouragement, or what would be your word to the Rwandans, because we're running short of time? Yes.
Yeah. I think survivors and other witnesses, including Hutu, which were free during genocide time, the support they can give our country and for the memory of people who have been killed, it is to let information they have until now. We realized during the last trial in Belgium that there was a lack of information, and we were even helped by testimony led by Dr. Sebu Harara, who had information about what was being doing during genocide in Kigali. But he died before the trial happened. But his document helped us well to prove what happened on behalf of Nete. So people who have been watching, who survived, have really helped the whole world to know what happened in details. As I told you, the main arm to fight deniers, that as you said, that is a part of genocide. So we have to write. But I would like ask if there is a possibility Rwanda have service collecting, recording statement from people who are ready to information.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Maitre Andre. As we sum up, Honorable Minister Busingye, I'll start with you. Your call to action, if you have any, and your words of encouragement to genocide survivors and Rwandans in general as we commemorate the loved ones that we lost during the 1994 genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsis.
Thank you once again. Today is the 9th, it's the 11th of April. If we were not staying indoors to try and push back on this pandemic of coronavirus, now we would be at Nyanza, and we would be commemorating the failure of the international community.
Absolutely.
So I want to speak to all Rwandans, and I want to speak to the survivors of Eto. I know there are very few. 2 nights ago, actually, there was a young lady on TVR.
Yes.
Her name is Diane, I think.
Yes.
Diane made a moving testimony of her life, how she survived as a very young girl. I don't think she knows how she survived. She just found herself alive. I want to speak to Diane and everybody like Diane, and stand together with them. Today we would be commemorating the failure of the international community, the failure of protection of people who were there, who should never have died.
Absolutely.
That walk that was from Eto all the way to Nyanza should never have happened. Those people should not have left Don Bosco. So I want to once again, be in solidarity with the survivors of Eto and survivors of any other places that when we talk about the context of the international community being able to prevent and stop, it was possible to prevent and stop beyond Eto all over the place. It was able. That's one. Number two, my second thing is that the genocide against the Tutsi was planned and implemented and executed with ruthless efficiency. That is a fact. Nobody will take it away. And the world, especially that world which should have come to our aid, did not come to our aid. That is also a fact. Those who deny the genocide are basically denying the truth. And to deny the truth is simply to grave dig, keep going around looking for things to deny. But the more they come together to deny, the more they become isolated, identified and isolated. And I want to simply say the thing that deniers of today were perpetrators of yesterday. They have been defeated. They were defeated yesterday. They will be defeated today. They will be defeated tomorrow. They will not have the last word on this matter. They will not. So my call would be that Rwanda, as a country, has survived and thrived. Rwandans, as a people, we have survived and thrived. Survivors of the genocide have survived and thrived. So together, we will thrive.
Thank you very much. In a few seconds, Honorable Deputy Speaker, your words of encouragement to the nation today.
Thank you very much, Fiona. What I would like to say is to survivors and all Rwandans, we are in a period of mourning and we are commemorating a genocide against Tutsi. Just wish them to keep strong. It's very hard sometimes, but you have to keep strong. And we are commemorating because we have at least a country peaceful, safe, and secure, which allows us really to do so. This is at least something we should be proud of. And I would add also that we owe all this to the people who gave what they had really to save this country with a very good leadership led by His Excellency, our President, Paul Kagame. And it's really good to have him as our leader. And I should also say that as a parliamentarian this time, representing my colleagues, I should say also that we'll do our best to be the voice where they cannot reach. For the fugitives around the world, we are ready to do whatever we can do as parliamentarians towards our counterparts in different parliaments. That's what we started. We also have an anti-genocide parliamentarian forum, which is working hard to reach to different parliaments so that we can see how to work together, not only to fight against genocide, but also to fight against deniers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister Busingye. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much, Maitre Andre, for joining us all the way from Belgium. And thank you very much for you who made time to watch us today. Do remember, unite, renew, stay strong, and God bless Rwanda.